Welcome to our deep dive into Ibn Khaldun's Muqaddimah. You've given us a pretty hefty excerpt from this foundational text on the philosophy of history, and we're excited to uncover its secrets together.
Exactly. It's not just about history. It's about understanding the patterns of civilization itself,
How societies rise and
the
fall,
dynamics of power.
and even the impact of geography and culture on human behavior. Buckle up because Ibn Khaldun's insights are as relevant today as they were centuries ago.
Absolutely.
So, where do we even begin with a text as complex as this?
Well, I think a good place to start is with the man himself, who was Ibn Khaldun.
Okay, yeah. Who was he?
Ibn Khaldun was, well, a lot of things, actually. He was a scholar,
Okay.
a jurist, a
Mm-hmm.
literateur. He was deeply interested in poetry and prose. He saw them as expressions of cultural identity. He also engaged with various scientific disciplines known through Arabic translations of Greek texts.
Wow, that's a lot. So, like science and the humanities.
Exactly, and these texts were developed by Muslim scientists over many centuries.
It sounds like he had his fingers in a lot of pies. That's pretty impressive for a scholar from the 14th century.
Well, what's interesting is that by Ibn Khaldun's time, scientific pursuits had become quite professionalized.
Oh, wow.
Many prominent physicians and astronomers in 12th and 13th century Syria and Cairo also held positions as jurists, teachers in medical institutions, or even timekeepers in major mosques.
So it was a very different time, with a different understanding of expertise. Did any particular life experiences shape his views on civilization, do you think?
You know, one event really stands out. In 1401, Ibn Khaldun had a series of encounters with the conqueror Tamerlane in Damascus.
Oh, Tamerlane. Wasn't he the fearsome warlord who, like, rampaged across Asia?
Exactly. He was a force of nature, heir to the legacy of Genghis Khan.
Oh,
With a
wow.
vision of universal domination through military might, he left a trail of destruction from Moscow to Delhi to Izmir.
Nobody was spared.
Nobody was spared, Muslim or not.
Meeting someone like Tamerlane must have been a stark reminder of the fragility of power,
Oh, absolutely.
especially for someone deeply concerned with the patterns of civilization.
It certainly would have given him a unique perspective on how quickly fortunes can change and how even the mightiest empires can crumble.
Okay, so we've got the man, the scholar, the historical context. Now let's talk about the Muqaddimah itself. What exactly is it?
Well, the Muqaddimah actually translates to introduction,
Okay.
and it was intended as an introduction to a larger work on history. In it, Ibn Khaldun explores the very nature of civilization. He was grappling with the tension between traditional religious knowledge and the study of historical events.
So he's trying to reconcile faith and reason, two different ways of understanding the world.
Precisely. A key concept for him is khabar, which means event in English.
Okay.
He emphasizes the need to critically examine historical events, comparing them to general conditions for verification.
So he's not just accepting historical accounts at face value, he's thinking critically,
Exact.
analyzing, looking for patterns. I'm starting to see why he's considered a foundational figure in the philosophy of history.
And this approach led him to critique his fellow historians, who he believed often relied on unsubstantiated claims and anecdotes.
Oh, I love it when scholars throw shade. Did he give any specific examples?
He did. One example is his analysis of the size of Solomon's army.
Okay.
Traditionally, historians claimed it was massive, but Ibn Khaldun, using simple calculations based on the number of generations since Solomon, showed that such a large army was statistically improbable.
He's using logic and reason to challenge accepted historical narratives. I bet that ruffled some feathers.
He also debunked the story of the Tuba kings raiding North Africa and giving the Berbers their name simply because he found their language strange. He pointed out that the historical accounts didn't match the geographical realities and logistical challenges of such an invasion.
So he wasn't afraid to call out inconsistencies and challenge conventional wisdom. What else did he debunk?
He even tackled the myth of a copper city in the desert, mentioned in some historical accounts. Yes. He meticulously deconstructed the story, pointing out its absurdity in terms of the sheer amount of copper needed and the fantastical details surrounding it.
That's a great example of his commitment to critical thinking. He's not just recording history, he's dissecting it, analyzing it, making sure it holds up to scrutiny.
Exactly. He insisted on comparing historical accounts to the principles of politics, human nature, and even basic logic.
Okay, I'm really getting a sense of Ibn Khaldun's approach. Now, let's get to the heart of the Muqaddimah. What are some of the key concepts that will resonate with someone like me who identifies as a learner?
One concept is absolutely central to Ibn Khaldun's work, He called it asabiya.
Asabiya. That's a new one. What does it mean?
It's often translated as group feeling, similar to social cohesion or solidarity.
Okay.
Ibn Khaldun believed that asabiya was the driving force behind the rise and fall of dynasties and civilizations.
So a shared identity, a sense of belonging. That's what gives a society its strength, its momentum.
Exactly. And he provides fascinating examples of how this group feeling operates in different societies, particularly among the nomadic Bedouins and the more settled urban populations.
Okay, I'm trying to think of some modern day examples,
Sure.
like how social movements gain incredible momentum. That's asabiya in action.
You got it.
It's the power of shared purpose.
Among the Bedouins, asabiya was based on kinship ties and a shared way of life, which made them incredibly resilient and fiercely independent. But in sedentary societies, as they become more luxurious and comfortable, that sense of asabiya tends to weaken, making them vulnerable to external threats or internal divisions.
That's a powerful insight, and it's so relevant to the world today.
Absolutely.
Think about political allegiances, tribalism, even brand loyalty. These are all expressions of asabiya, the power of group identity to shape human behavior.
It highlights the importance of understanding these dynamics, both for analyzing historical events and for navigating the complexities of our own time. Ibn Khaldun was keenly aware of how social cohesion can both unify and divide, and how its ebb and flow can shape the course of history.
This is getting really interesting. So, strong group feeling leads to the rise of dynasties. What happens next? Does Ibn Khaldun have anything to say about how those dynasties play out over time?
He does. He's famous for his theory of the cyclical nature of dynasties, which he believed typically lasted for about 3 generations,
Okay.
roughly 120 years. He even breaks down the different stages of a dynasty's lifespan.
Okay, walk me through this cycle. I'm all ears.
It starts with the founders, those who established the dynasty.
Okay.
They're driven by strong asabiya, a shared purpose, and a willingness to fight for their goals. They're usually austere and focused on building and expanding their power.
So they're like the classic underdog story,
You
a
could-
group
so-
bound together by a common cause, defying the odds and seizing control.
Exactly. But once the dynasty is established, things start to change. The second generation, those who inherit the power, grow up in a more comfortable environment. They've never known the struggles of their forefathers, and their asabiya begins to wane. They're more focused on enjoying the fruits of their predecessors' labor than on continuing the hard work of building and expanding.
It's the classic soft belly of empire. Too much wealth,
Right,
too much comfort, leading to complacency and decline.
right. Ibn Khaldun describes this as a period of increasing luxury, where the ruling class becomes more focused on ostentation and pleasure than on governing effectively. They start to lose touch with the people they rule, and their grip on power weakens.
And then comes the inevitable fall.
Not always inevitable, but certainly more likely in this state. By the third generation, the asabiya that once bound the dynasty together has almost vanished. The ruling class is decadent and weak, and they become easy targets for rivals, both internal and external. The dynasty collapses, and the cycle begins anew.
Is there no hope for dynasties to break out of this cycle? It sounds pretty bleak.
It's not deterministic. Ibn Khaldun emphasized that the cycle was a pattern, not an ironclad rule. He believed that dynasties could prolong their lifespan, even avoid collapse altogether, by focusing on maintaining strong leadership, fostering a sense of shared purpose among the ruling class, and adapting to changing circumstances.
So it's not just about fate. Dynasties have agency. They can make choices that determine their longevity.
Exactly. And that's where Ibn Khaldun's insights become particularly relevant for us today. His work challenges us to consider the factors that contribute to the success or failure of any group or organization, from small businesses to entire nations.
Okay, so we've got Asabiya and the cycle of dynasties. What other big ideas from Ibn Khaldun should we be exploring?
Well, Ibn Khaldun also had some interesting things to say about royal authority. He believed that royal authority, while often misused, was a necessary evil, essential for maintaining order and fostering civilization.
So he's not an anarchist. He sees the need for some form of government.
Right. He delves into how rulers' behavior can impact the success of a dynasty. He emphasizes the benefits of justice, fairness, and even mildness over oppression and tyranny. He understood that a ruler's actions have a profound impact on the people they rule, and that their character can either strengthen or weaken the foundations of their power.
What's fascinating here is that he connects the dots between a ruler's actions and the overall well-being of a society. It's like he's saying that good governance isn't just about maintaining order, it's about creating the conditions for people to thrive.
You're catching on quickly. He even has this insightful quote, "The common people follow the religion of the ruler."
Wow, that's a powerful statement. It speaks to the influence leaders have on shaping not just the political landscape, but also the cultural and even religious norms of a society, and makes you think about the responsibility that comes with leadership.
Exactly. He saw how closely intertwined those aspects of a society were, and he believed that a wise ruler would understand this interconnectedness and strive to rule in a way that fostered both social stability and cultural flourishing.
This is blowing my mind. We've covered group feeling, the cycle of dynasties, and the role of royal authority. Is there anything else we should be looking out for in the Muqaddimah?
Ibn Khaldun's detailed observations on crafts and sciences might particularly interest you as a learner.
Wait, he was paying attention to what people were doing?
Yes,
How they were making a living? That's pretty unique for a scholar of his time.
it is. He meticulously describes various crafts, from architecture and tailoring to medicine, highlighting their role in society and how their development reflects the stage of a civilization's advancement. He even categorized sciences, including jurisprudence, logic, philosophy, and what he called the occult sciences.
So he wasn't just an armchair philosopher. He was out there observing, analyzing, trying to understand how societies actually functioned.
Precisely. What's fascinating is that he observed the decline of the Arabic language in certain regions that came under non-Arab rule. He saw it as a symptom of cultural change, a sign that the dominant culture was shifting.
It's like he's a cultural anthropologist centuries before the field even existed. He's looking at the small details, the everyday practices, to understand the bigger picture of how societies function and evolve.
He's connecting the dots between politics, culture, language, and even economic activities. He understood that these were all intertwined and that to understand one, you needed to understand them all.
Okay, my brain is starting to feel full, but I'm hooked. There's so much to unpack here. I need a moment to process all this.
And we've only just begun. We still have to explore his surprisingly modern economic theories, his thoughts on knowledge and learning, and even his insights into human nature itself.
All right, you've convinced me. Let's take a short pause to absorb all this and then dive even deeper into the world of Ibn Khaldun's Muqaddimah.
Ready to delve back into the Muqaddimah?
Absolutely. You mentioned Ibn Khaldun had some surprisingly modern economic theories.
Yeah.
What makes them so modern?
What's fascinating is that he was writing centuries before Adam Smith, yet he was already grappling with concepts like profit, labor, and the different ways people make a living.
So he wasn't just describing how economies work. He was analyzing the underlying principles, the motivations behind economic activity.
Exactly. He even had specific terms for sustenance, the basic necessities of life, and capital accumulation, the surplus wealth that goes beyond mere survival.
Okay.
What's even more interesting is that he critiques certain economic practices that he considered harmful.
Like what? Give me an example.
And for example, he criticizes those who exploit market fluctuations for quick profits.
Hmm.
He sees this as a form of speculation that doesn't create real value and can destabilize markets.
That sounds incredibly relevant to today's world of high-frequency trading and, like, complex financial instruments. It's like he's foreshadowing the dangers of short-term gains over long-term stability.
And he also criticizes seeking profit from buried treasure, seeing it as a get-rich-quick scheme that distracts from productive activities that benefit society.
So for Ibn Khaldun, economics wasn't just about maximizing wealth. It was about creating a just and sustainable society.
Precisely. And that leads us to another important aspect of his work, his thoughts on knowledge and learning.
Okay, tell me more. What kind of learner was Ibn Khaldun?
He advocated for a structured approach to learning. He believed that students needed a solid foundation in the basics before tackling more complex subjects.
Okay.
He was critical of teaching methods that overwhelmed students with difficult material before they were ready.
So no jumping into advanced calculus right away.
Not according to Ibn Khaldun. He believed that memorization was crucial for developing intellectual habits and building a strong foundation.
Okay.
He saw it as a way to train the mind, creating a framework for understanding complex ideas.
That's interesting. We often think of memorization as rote learning that stifles creativity. But he saw it as a necessary step in cultivating a sharp and disciplined mind.
Exactly. He recognized the importance of acquiring knowledge and developing the mental faculties to process and apply it. His ideas connect with modern approaches that emphasize building a solid foundation and scaffolding learning experiences.
This is making me rethink my whole approach to learning. Maybe I need to brush up on those multiplication tables.
It's always good to revisit the fundamentals. But seriously, Ibn Khaldun's insights challenge us to think critically about how we learn, how we structure our education systems, and how to cultivate intellectual curiosity and rigorous thinking.
We've covered a lot. Group feeling, the cycle of dynasties, royal authority, economics, knowledge, and learning. It's incredible how much insight is packed into the Muqaddimah.
And we've only scratched the surface. There are layers upon layers to explore. We haven't even touched upon his deep dives into specific crafts, his analysis of human psychology and behavior, or his observations on the impact of geography and climate on civilizations.
I'm realizing this deep dive could go on forever. But you're right, there's so much more to explore.
That's what makes Ibn Khaldun so fascinating. His work is a portal into a different time and way of thinking, yet offers timeless insights into civilization and the human condition. It's what makes him so relevant today.
I already feel like I need to reread the excerpts with all these new insights. There's so much to ponder.
It's just the beginning.
Okay, before we move on, can we try to pull together the key takeaways from the Muqaddimah so far? What are the big ideas a learner should really take to heart?
Let's see. First, the concept of asabiyya is crucial. Ibn Khaldun's emphasis on group feeling as the driving force behind social and political change is incredibly powerful. It helps us understand not just the dynamics of history, but also the forces shaping our world today.
It's like a key to unlocking the patterns of history, from the rise and fall of empires to the formation of social movements today.
Then there's the cycle of dynasties, his observation that power tends to corrupt, and that even the most powerful empires eventually decline. It's a cautionary tale, reminding us that no form of government is immune to the effects of time and human fallibility.
It reminds us that history is not linear. There's no guaranteed upward trajectory. Success can breed complacency, which can lead to downfall.
Intertwined with this is his analysis of royal authority, the idea that leadership is essential for social order, but also prone to abuse. He highlights the importance of justice, fairness, and even mildness in a ruler who seeks to create a flourishing and stable society.
It seems like the lesson for us as individuals is that we should be wary of unchecked power, both in others and in ourselves. Power without accountability can easily lead to tyranny.
Absolutely. And finally, his insights on knowledge and learning are incredibly valuable. His emphasis on building a solid foundation, developing intellectual habits, and approaching knowledge with a structured and disciplined mind offers a timeless guide for any learner.
I love how he challenges us to think about learning as a process, not just a destination. It's not just about accumulating facts, but about developing the mental tools to analyze, synthesize, and apply that knowledge.
And that's the essence of being a lifelong learner. To be constantly curious, seek new knowledge, challenge assumptions, and use our understanding to create a better world. Ibn Khaldun, with his groundbreaking work, offers a roadmap for that journey.
I'm starting to see why Ibn Khaldun is considered such a groundbreaking thinker. His work isn't just about history, it's a reflection on the very nature of civilization itself.
Exactly. He was trying to understand the underlying patterns of human behavior, the forces that shape societies, and what makes them succeed or fail. He was asking questions that are still relevant today.
It's incredible how relevant his ideas are, even though he was writing in the 14th century.
Well, he was grappling with timeless questions. How do societies maintain order? What leads to economic prosperity or decline? How do cultural norms and values influence political systems? These are things we're still trying to figure out today.
It's also impressive how he was able to synthesize knowledge from so many different fields: history, politics, economics, religion, even psychology and sociology. He was a true polymath.
That's what makes the Muqaddimah such a rich and rewarding text. It offers a holistic perspective, a way of seeing the interconnectedness of all aspects of human experience.
It's like he's giving us a new set of lenses to view the world, a framework for understanding the complexities of human societies and the forces behind historical change.
He challenges us to think critically, question our assumptions, and see the world in new ways. That's why it's so important for learners to engage with his work.
We've covered so much ground, but before we wrap up this deep dive, is there anything else from the Muqaddimah that you think is especially important?
Yeah, there's one more concept I think is worth highlighting. It's the idea that civilization is a dynamic process, constantly evolving and changing.
So he wasn't just describing what civilization is, he was explaining how it works, how it transforms over time.
Precisely. He identifies several factors that contribute to this change. One is the tension between nomadic and sedentary ways of life.
It's like the yin and yang of civilization, right? Each force pushing and pulling, creating a dynamic equilibrium that's always shifting.
Exactly. He saw how these two forces, the Bedouins with their fierce independence and the city dwellers with their more refined culture, were constantly interacting and shaping each other. He also recognized the impact of environmental factors, like climate and geography.
So we're not just products of our genes or our culture, we're also shaped by the physical world we inhabit.
Right, and perhaps most importantly, he emphasizes the role of human agency in shaping history.
So we're not just passive observers, we're active participants. We have the power to create change.
Exactly. He wasn't a determinist. He believed we have the power to shape the world we want to live in, even within the constraints we inherit.
That's a powerful message, especially in a world that often feels overwhelming and beyond our control. It's a reminder that we're not just studying history, we're creating it every day.
Ibn Khaldun's work acknowledges the challenges we face, but also affirms our capacity for change and progress. It's what makes his work so inspiring.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on history, on society, even on myself.
And remember, this is just a starting point. There's so much more to explore in the Muqaddimah. Hopefully, this is giving you some key concepts and insights to guide you on your own journey of learning and discovery.
It definitely has. If Ibn Khaldun were alive today, observing our world of globalization, technology, and social change, what do you think he would say?
That's the question, isn't it? What patterns of history might he recognize? What warnings would he offer for the future? What opportunities for progress might he see that we've overlooked?
His work really makes you think, not just about the past, but about the present and the future too.
Ibn Khaldun reminds us that history is not just something we study, it's something we create each and every day.
Well, that about wraps it up for our deep dive into Ibn Khaldun's Muqaddimah. Until next time, keep those intellectual gears turning.